Among political analysts, there's little disagreement that former President Donald Trump continues to be the de facto leader of the Republican Party. Among former GOP lawmakers, there's a Republican path ahead where that's not the case. Mark Sanford, former governor and congressman for South Carolina, is one of them. His new book is titled Two Roads Diverged, a second chance for the Republican Party, the conservative movement, the nation, and ourselves. Mark, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Rena. It's a treat to be with you.
So I want to take folks back for a second here. Back when you were governor in 2009, you end up flying down to Argentina. You were having an affair with the journalist there, and you told your staff, if anyone calls, if your wife calls, tell them you're hiking in the Appalachian Trail. Anyway, this lie ends up getting exposed, ends up making national headlines.
Governor alert, the search for Mark Sanford.
Getting weirder. Yeah, okay, that's about right.
When did you realize it was over for you?
Well, when you get the call, it wasn't, a conspiracy. It was a great lesson in the fact that there's no such thing as a little white lie. It was intended for one person. Instead, it became a national punchline and a national headline. And when you get the call down there of you need to come home, your life is over, political life is over. You just don't know its form. As it turns out, that was not the case, but there are a whole chapter of different life lessons that were learned in that particular chapter of life, one of which is obviously there's no such thing as a little white lie, and the truth matters. There's a lot of introspection that comes on the way down that doesn't come on the way up.
Does your story prove that political redemption is possible after maybe your reputation has been torn apart?
I don't think it proves anything. I think every story is unique and different. It's my story. And as I say, there are lessons learned. And one of which, as I'd mentioned earlier, was about the importance of truth. And so, the Donald Trump phenomenon comes along, and all of a sudden there isn't adherence to this notion of truth. And you call it like you see it. And then the political ripples begin to fly. And so I was forgiven for the unforgivable of political infidelities, if you will, but not forgiven for speaking out against Trump.
You say in the book that although Trump hijacked the Republican Party, the party does have a second chance and that there's a new path forward. What does that path look like? And how does the Republican Party break Trump's grasp? Is it really possible?
I think as with any inflection point in our lives, the same is true for a company, the same is true for a country. And that is to go back to the basics of what brought you to power. And for the party, it's not adherence to one personality or one man. It's about adherence to a set of ideas and ideals that had everything to do with why the party came to be of prominence in the first place. And so, this idea of not spending money you don't have, it used to be a conservative ideal. It was sort of thrown out the window with Trump, but it's an ideal we ought to go back to. The idea of institutions and traditions being the glue that holds our republic together well beyond what's manifested in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. The idea that we have a peaceful transition of power. You could go down a laundry list of different simple things that have been part of what the party has stood for historically and part of where the party has gotten off kilter of late.
What makes you think that anyone in a position of power in the Republican Party will listen to what you're saying?
Well, in the short run, certainly not. That's part of why I wrote the book. It's about saying, look, I believe true north to be over here, and time has a way of bringing us back to center. And we've been in sort of a frenzied, odd spot. I grant you that. The four of us who spoke out originally against Trump are all gone now. Corker and Flake in the Senate, me and Amash in the House. But times are changing. You see the likes of Adam Kinzinger, who's spoken out vociferously. He doesn't have a southern red district, but he has spoken out nonetheless. You see what happened to Cheney. She was certainly hurt in the process. And that's why I've said, somebody like Lindsey Graham is still a canary in the coal mine. He has doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down on being pro-Trump. I think he has a pretty good nose for the current political mood of the moment in the GOP in South Carolina, or a place like South Carolina. But that doesn't mean it's locked in forever. And I think that if you look at the history of the wave of politics, we're at an inflection point, and this fever is soon going to break. And I think it's important that all of us look for ways of speaking out, whether that's in the larger community or in talking to a neighbor or a friend across the dining room table.
How would you explain South Carolina politics to someone who might not understand what's happening today?
People have oftentimes said, you know, it's too small to be a country and too big to be an insane asylum. So it has a unique and distinct personality. I would say that politics down here are a blood sport. People hit really, really hard. If you look at what was done to McCain in the Bush primary a number of years back, I mean, people hit very hard, at times unethically so. I have a real problem with that, but it is the nature of the beast. But, you know, people are conservative, but wild in their politics, I guess is the easiest way that I'd describe it.
Your book takes a hard look at the Republican Party, where we are at politics. But I was also surprised at just how brutally honest you were about your assessment on your own life. You refer to yourself, and I'm quoting here, as a dead man walking twice in your political career, 2009 with that extramarital affair when that went public, and the second when you actually lost your seat in Congress in 2018. Why rehash all these events and play it out in public at this moment?
Because I think to have credibility, you gotta be real. I think one of the things that's lacking in politics these days is authenticity. And everybody pretends to be perfect while the other person pretends to be perfect, and it's just a fake conversation. I'm tired of fake conversations. And I think to offer some level of credibility in what I have to offer in prescription, you gotta be real. And that means laying out, you know, not your perfect report card, but your whole life report card, which has blemishes, because that's real. I mean, the reality of our human existence is nobody goes through this walk unscathed, and that every one of us has a moment or a chapter or a week or a day where we wish we could push rewind play, but that's not life. And the hope is that through those blemishes, through those gray spots, through those black spots, you learn and you become a better person for it. And hopefully, as a consequence, have a little bit more wisdom in offering ideas going forward, and hopefully a little bit more humility and empathy in the way that you offer those ideas.